Hello, so we're going to look at how to go from an idea to production using Watsonx.ai to just go beyond the usual chatbot that we always use. In this tutorial, we're going to create a Watsonx AI project. We're going to create a simple generic summary service, deploy the application into production as a service, deploy a web application to be consumed, and then expand the capabilities by creating agents. You will need an IBM account. Some basic knowledge of LLMs is always useful. Python knowledge is always a plus, but it's not essential because it's very small amount of code. And well, later on you will need an idea to take it on to the next level on your own. The API key is required in order to access the application from the outside. You can get this from your IBM Cloud dashboard by going to Manage and then managing the API keys. You can create one, and then this will always be used for your application. The following instructions will require some coding in the terminal. I will actually post this into the video comments. The API key itself does not actually allow you to access the application. You must get an authorization token. So by doing what I'm doing at the moment, you can actually get your authorization token. Now this is something that you want to do only if you want to manually test the application from the outside. Otherwise, this will be managed by your web server, which is managing the application. As you can see, this is the authorization token, and if you put it into a client such as Postman, you can use this to actually access the application. So once again, the API key by itself is not actually enough. The first bot that we're going to create is going to be a plain vanilla summary bot. Basically takes information and it just summarizes it. This is visible from the outside. The bot resides within the platform and you can access from the outside until you deploy it. Once you deploy it, you can access it properly. But once again, this will be one simple bot accessed by a web client. So next, we're actually going to create a project. So let's start by creating a project by clicking on plus and giving it a name. Now, because this is the first time that you initialize this project, you probably do not have a virtual machine associated with it. The virtual learning machine has to be present. So if it's not present, just create one. The system will actually advise you on how to do it. So now I'm going to try and create a prompt, and because there is no virtual machine associated, it will now ask me to create one. So I'm associating the machine, and that's it. So now I can go back to the assets and create an asset. So the asset will be the actual bot that I want to build. So this bot will take care of summarizing stories. So this is not going to have any particular instructions. It's just going to know that it has to summarize whatever document is provided to it. The very important part is one at the top, which is the instruction. The instruction is what is telling the bot what to do. So in this case, we're saying summarize the following document. So we're not going to give any special instructions. We're going to keep it as vanilla as possible. And that's because later on we want to go and explore what we can do with agents. So as you can see, you can change the language model that you want. And this is just really trial and error. With some experience, you will find out which ones are better for certain tasks. So also understanding the basic difference between chatting models and instructional models is extremely important. Not only different models will have different performance, but it will also have different cost. So when you choose a model, you have to actually put that into consideration. So as you can see, I'm actually trying to play around with the instructions. Down at the bottom in the try, you can actually put the input and try it out, and that will follow up what you have put in the instruction. Now you can also create examples. The examples is basically creating one shot or multiple shots. They can help, But in this case, as I said before, I'm trying to keep it as vanilla as possible. One more thing that you can do is to go and change the parameters. One parameter that I generally change is put the token to 0. Putting the minimum token to 0 will not create conflicts with your instruction. For example, in my instruction, I'm saying that I want a paragraph no longer than 50 words. So in this way, I don't actually end up with having some conflicts due to the token numbers. Another thing that you can do here is to go and see what the call command is. So if you want to actually go and call it from the outside, you can do that. I copy the call commands, or at least all the options and parameters, into a REST testing platform, which is Postman in this stage. And one thing that you just need to use is the authentication token, which is what we created before. Is the one thing which is not on the code command. Everything else is completely one-to-one copied from the code command that you have there. This is one good way to go and test the system from the outside. Now, because that authorization token only lasts for 1 hour, you can only manually test this, so it's very hard to automate this, which is why you have to go and create a different system for putting into production, and I'll show you how to do that later. So as you can see at the top, I have all the parameters and everything to make it work, the URL that you need to call, and at the bottom you can see the actual output. So now we're actually going to deploy the bot. Deploy means to put it into a proper environment that will allow for both monitoring, performance tuning, and similar things. Also will allow you to give all the instructions for external or internal endpoints. So let's see now how to put it into production. As you can see, if you try to promote this to production, you can't do that. So let's see how we can actually go and do that. So we go back, we choose the prompt, and there is one thing that we need to do. So you need to choose at least one variable. You need to create one variable. Variables are provided to the service and are used in the actual bot. So in this case, for example, if you take the instruction at the top, which is summarize the following in a paragraph of 50 words or less, then you want to provide the text coming from the user, and you need to provide that as a variable. So in order to do that, so here I created a variable, and then I'm also testing the service. You can make the modification with the variable with the instruction, so you can actually use the curly brackets to put the instruction and the variables together. If you don't do that, then the variable will be automatically added at the end of the instruction. So now we can actually promote this prompt and put it into deployment. So to do that, we simply click on the burger menu and choose promote to space. If you don't have a space, you should create a space first. I have one already. And this will allow for the prompt to be made available from the outside, and also allow you to do extra things such as monitoring and run governance on it. So when you arrive here, you can see that it is not actually been deployed, it is being added to the space. So if you go back to the space, you can see it. And this is where you can now create a new deployment and add it to it. So we choose deploy, we create a deployment, and this is where we can give it a few more information about the name of the service and similar things. So I'll just give it a name so I can actually recognize it. And a description just in case the bots start growing. So now the bot is deploying, and actually it's already deployed, so this one was pretty quick. And now we can do a few more things, such as testing, for example. So when it's created, as you can see, you have the internal and external endpoints. But also one thing that you probably want to notice is the fact that you have both the streaming, but also the normal standard endpoint. So if you want to use streaming for chat so that you can see as the words come, you can do that. Otherwise, you can just use the normal endpoint. And when the message is complete, it will just return to the client. So here you can test it, see how things go. Here is a JSON in case you need to take it onto your application outside. And as you can see, this is the actual structure. As you can see, it's the instruction plus what we just said before, the actual variable, which is put sequentially to the instruction, unless you go and change it manually. We can come here in the overview and we can see things such as how much the service was used. So the next part is about putting into real production with the real applications. And to do this, I created two nodes. One is a summary bot service and the other one is an application server. So the application server is simply an extremely simple UI that takes some text and queries the service for a summary. The summary bot service is a simple Flask application that takes care of all the authentication. So as I said before, the token expires, so you need a service which is not residing on a web client that is able to authenticate. And so that is what we have done with the Flask application. So this is our Flask application. This acts as a broker, basically sits in between the web client and the Watson AI service. What it does is basically making sure that the service is exposed in a secure way, and it takes care of the authentication. In this way, of course, we do not want to show the API key on the web client, so this broker will take care of doing all the authentication. As you can see, this URL is the actual URL to the Watsonx AI service, and this is the service. Very simple, basic Python Flask service. Nothing really great about this part. The next one is just a simple web page designed with a carbon front end, just to make it a tiny bit prettier. Once again, very simple. Now I'm going to show you what the application looks like. It is running, it is deployed online, so you can actually go and test it if you want. And as you can see, it's just taking text and sending it out to the actual broker. This is what the application looks like. And now just one thing that you're probably going to be surprised of, because this is vanilla and it's not been instructed on really how to do things, it's just been told summarize things, you can see that it can actually make mistakes. So for example, it creates a summary that is probably longer than the actual original document. So let's try to do something else instead. Let's try another text, something longer. So I have a bit of a longer story, try to run it again, and as you can see, the summary now is a lot shorter. So the next part will be about using agents instead. So agents are nothing more than very specialized prompts. We know that if we have a prompt which is highly specialized, it can do the task much better. For example, instead of just saying write a poem, we can go and tell him you are a Renaissance poet and you use this kind of values, etc, etc, etc. So that will create an agent which is a lot better at doing its own task. So now, well, let's have a look. I created a sample financial statement and I'm just saying summarize the document. So first of all, you can see that it's in a way that maybe we don't want, and also it's not the best quality. So now I created this agent, and it's basically just a lot of information about the agent himself. Like, how do I want things, what kind of tone, how should he talk, and it knows about finance. I'm also telling him that it's a financial Australian document, So yeah, we're just trying to make the agent very, very good at his job. And as you can see now, the prompt acts in a much different way. And you can see that it looks really more like a financial statement, exactly like we wanted it. So that's one thing. Using agents or using the agents paradigm creates much better outcomes. So let's just save this agent, and we're probably going to use it in the future. I'm not going to redeploy it because it will be the same as the other one. It's just going to be a different URL. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm just going to store it for future reference. So this time, just to prove it again, I'm just going to use a bot, an agent bot, which is going to be humorous, sarcastic, make jokes in a very specific way. So I created this very long prompt with the kind of humor that I'm looking for in this bot. This time I went even one step further and actually gave him a name so that he knows what his name is, and in case he can actually respond to that name. Just gonna tell him a joke. Ask him to tell me a joke. Let's see what it generates, and there you go. He's trying to follow that information that I gave him. Once again, this is one way to improve the performance of the prompts that we create. Thank you.